What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Eagles Enemies presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's your boy KB. Yes, I know we missed Cowboys week both times this year, but hey, Cowboys are frauds. We don't care about that loss. It's probably the easiest loss against the Cowboys that we'll ever have to get over. Shout out Gardner Minshew, but it is Saints week now as we head into 2023. First game of the new year, first day of the new year. Eagles-Saints has become like a rivalry that's not really a rivalry in my mind, and there's no better way to dive into Saints week than with my good friend from the Saints Happy Hour podcast, Ralph Malbrough. He's the best of the best when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter at SaintsForecast and check out that Saints Happy Hour podcast because they are absolutely hilarious. And before we get started into this episode of Eagles Enemies, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at KBIZZL311 and on Instagram at KBIZZLE11. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed. Search Underground Sports Philadelphia on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's our main feed where you get Eagles Enemies every single week that we have an episode. Leave those 5-star reviews. It really does go a long way for the show continuing to grow and reaching the trajectories we think it really can. So leave a 5-star review on Apple, on Spotify, and make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. That's where you get full video episodes of Eagles Enemies, full video episodes of every podcast on our network that's coming out of Underground Studios, original content, live streams. It's all going down at youtube.com/@undergroundsportsphiladelphia. Smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below your thoughts on Eagles Saints this week and everything Ralph and I discuss on the episode, and make sure you subscribe. But without any further ado, let's get into Saints Week with Ralph Malbrough. All right, everybody, the Dallas Cowboys decided to spoil Christmas, and now the Eagles move on to New Year's Day, where the New Orleans Saints, a familiar foe, come to town. It is Eagles Enemies, presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia. KB with you, and joining us, like he does every time these two teams clash, my good friend Ralph Malbrough from the Saints Happy Hour podcast. Ralph, welcome back to Eagles Enemies. Happy to have you, and talk to me about this Saints team, man. It's been a wild roller coaster year.
It's been a really, really weird season. First of all, I think I personally am paying like a penance because my wife is a ridiculous Astros fan, and I'm a huge Astros fan too, but she is a huge Astros fan, and I wanted nothing more than for her than for the Astros to win another World Series, because the first World Series, she had to spend it in an emergency room.
Jeez.
And listen, I know you'd rather your team win a title than not, right?
Sure.
But like experiencing it in an emergency room, Game 7, like it wasn't the best. So I was like, just let the Astros win a second title for her. And I feel like because they beat the Phillies, like everything with the Saints is some kind of way connected with Philadelphia, right? We traded with you guys for the extra first round pick. We traded CD Deuce. And now, like everything,
we took Malcolm from you.
Yeah, we took y'all gave him back though. We missed Malcolm. The Saints should have kept him. Like they really miss his tag.
We miss him too.
like he retired. I know he's like doing stuff, but like the Saints should have been like, bro, like what do we need to do to have you? Because when they got him, most Saints fans were like, oh my God, Sean Payton is bringing back one of his boys, and he's over the hill. This is not going to go well. And like it didn't go well for like 2 weeks, and then Malcolm's like, don't worry, I got it. I never get hurt. I got old man strength. I'll just shut down these freaking tight ends. It'll be great. And he was awesome for 2 years. He really was. Especially last year, like he was amazing.
Beast.
He's a beast. He's a beast. Like he just never got hurt. He never got hurt.
So
and even
good.
though his speed declined, he still had old man strength.
Yep.
It was ridiculous, but like everything ties to you guys, right? And now like you guys can officially like end the Saints season. But the Saints season, it's been really weird in a sense of like the NFC South is dreadful, right? And the Saints, you can bang on them for like they went all in with Jameis, they made the trade with you guys, and everybody's given Howie Roseman's bouquets because it looked for a second like he was going to get like a top 4 pick. Now it's going to be like 10 to 15 range, right? But my thing with the Saints, you can criticize all the moves they did, going with Jameis and getting rid of CD Deuce, which they botched. They should have done that earlier in the year in the draft when they knew they weren't going to extend him. Like, they did all these things that were wrong. But their overall theory of the NFC sucks, the NFC South especially sucks, we're going to try to win this damn thing. Like, Kyle, that theory, like, that was correct. Like, they were 100% correct. And, like, if they'd have just got a couple more breaks, they could be 8-7 or 7-8 if they'd have just held on against Tampa or held on against Cincinnati, or the ball wouldn't have hit the crossbar against Minnesota and they'd gone to overtime, maybe win that. Like, the theory that they should be competing and not rebuilding, like, that was 100% correct. Everything else, though, it has gone wrong. Like, it's just the 2-year injury apocalypse that the Saints have had. It's never ending, dude. Like, it's incredible.
I feel like just from following you on Twitter, the Dennis Allen, Jekyll and Hyde from Saints fans has been,
I don't think,
like, very like, we want Dennis Allen fired, and then you have your tweets where it's like, let's be rational here.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I mean, listen. Here's the thing. Like, I think there is one. You follow Sean Payton. Sean Payton was. There's like 6 good coaches in the NFL, right? You guys probably have one of them, although he's only been there a couple of years. I wouldn't necessarily put him in the Tomlin, Andy Reid, McVay class of coaches, or Belichick. Like, I wouldn't put him in those, but he's close, right? But there's only like maybe 7 of them, right? And the Saints had one of them. And he was elite. And he was elite at everything. He was elite at motivation. He was elite at details. He was elite at game plan. He was elite at everything. And Dennis Allen is like not, right? But like, fans, I think there's this sense of like, it can't just be he's run-of-the-mill bad, and like if we got him better players and got an OC, maybe he could be okay and we could get to the playoffs. Like, fans don't want to say that. He's got to be the worst ever and get rid of him. But like, he's just run-of-the-mill bad. Like, he's not an atrocity like Urban Meyer or Hackett in Denver, right?
It's not Josh McDaniels.
He's not Josh McDaniels in Denver, right? Like, the Saints, they don't always be smart. They don't get the details right. But Kyle, they have played incredibly freaking hard for him. Like, they have played their best football the last 5 weeks. They gave it away against Tampa. Like, 9,000 things had to go wrong. You take out one of them, and they're in first place in the South. Like, I can name you 9 things in that game. Just change one of them. Mark Ingram doesn't run out of bounds. They don't get the 50-yard pass interference penalty. Like, there's like so many things in that game. Olave doesn't drop the ball. Taysom Hill doesn't drop the ball. So you just change a couple of things and they're mediocre, right? But he's not Sean Payton, and he's just kind of boring. But the Saints, man, they play incredible. They will not quit. And yesterday, if you had told me, the Saints are going to fall behind 10-0 on Christmas Eve, I'd have been like, I will bet every dime in my savings account that Cleveland wins the game like 27-3, and it's over, and we're just gonna yell at each other on Saints Twitter the next 2 weeks about should they or will they fire Dennis Allen. But the Saints, man, they fought back. They overcame their idiocy in the first half of it's minus 15 degrees wind chill. Why would we run the ball with Taysom Hill? Let's throw the ball with Andy Dalton. And then they wised up, and then Stefanski's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw it 31 times with Deshaun Watson. Like, what are you doing, bro? And I was like, it was just like every time Chubb touched the ball, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be a house call. Like, the Saints run defense is so bad, and we can get into the game in a minute. But the Saints, they played incredibly hard in this stupidly bad division. In some kind of way, they're still in it. But the problem is, and I tweeted this to you, and I believe this, like, I know y'all are banged up, but let me tell you something. If y'all can't beat this injured, bad Saints team, y'all are going to be one and done in the playoffs. Like, the Saints are a layup for y'all practically, because everything y'all do well, the Saints don't. Like, this is the Saints. Kyle, you know this, for the last 5 years, 2017 to 2021, me and you would joke on Twitter. I'd be like, no one runs the ball on the Saints except the stupid Eagles. Right? But now the Saints run defense is terrible. Like,
we always found a way, one way or another. And then, of course, this year, Miles Sanders is having a career year.
That's right.
So that'll be nice after, fumbles the ball away, fumbles the game away against the Cowboys, and
like why couldn't y'all just win that game and take 2 weeks off? It would have been good
perfect.
for y'all. It would have been good for us. Like, why couldn't they just finish the deal? It would have been
so great. And then, of course, we get more banged up in that game. Avonte Maddox is now out indefinitely. Lane Johnson's out for the remainder of the regular season, which kind of makes me a little more nervous about this game just in terms of how close it will be, because Lane Johnson has been arguably our most important player over the past decade. When he's out there, like, nobody's getting past him. How do you see this Saints defense, banged up and all, going up against this Eagles offensive line now that will have a replacement right tackle in there, but for the most part, pretty healthy?
Well, I wrote a column for the TV station that I do morning hits for after the game and write a couple of columns for them a week during the football season. I wrote, we talk about Dennis Allen being bad, and we talk about the quarterback issues with the Saints. Jameis broke his back, and now they have Dalton. We fight about that. Jameis, he wants to play, but he's not healthy enough, and we go back and forth on that. And we talk about other things. And the safeties leaving. They traded C.D. Deuce. Marcus Williams went to Baltimore, right? We lost Jenkins. Fans argue about that. But one of the things I feel like that's killed the Saints is their defensive line went from elite. I think it was playing the best in the NFL the last month of the year. Like, they were killing people on the defensive line. Cameron Jordan, he had 12.5 sacks last year. He has 5.5. David Onyemata, he ain't been the same dude since he got off the juice. He was on the juice. He was a really good defensive tackle. There was a moment where we were like, he's the best defensive tackle. It's not an alien like Aaron Donald. Like, he was playing that good in 2019 and 2020. He got suspended. He ain't been the same. And Marcus Davenport, who was, by the way, their best player on defense last year. He was. He had 9 sacks. Saints fans, our whole knock against Marcus Davenport was, bro, why can't you stay healthy? If you would just stay healthy, you'd be the best defensive end in the league. And he has been. It's never been when he plays, he was terrible. This year, he's been terrible. He had 9 sacks last year. This year, he has a half sack. And here's how bad it was. They didn't even play him yesterday in the cold in Cleveland. They barely played him. Maybe he's got some injuries. Maybe they were like, the cold will exacerbate the injury. But they were like, they didn't play him. They played a UDFA, Carl Granderson, instead of him. And Carl Granderson was great, by the way, against Cleveland in that game. He had the sack that wrap up Deshaun Watson, which, by the way, is kind of creep on creep crime because Deshaun Watson, we know his history. Carl Granderson actually is a convicted sex felon. He spent time in jail, and the Saints waited for him to get out of prison, and they kept him on the roster, and he's pretty good.
Man.
But nobody knows about it because he's not any good. But he's a guy that they're playing over Marcus Davenport because Marcus Davenport's not getting it done. So their defensive line just isn't any good, and they get pushed around. They kind of, Kyle, it's been a case of the last couple of years, besides Onyemata, they had a bunch of UDFA scrubs at defensive tackle. And the run defense stayed elite, except against you guys, right? And I think the Saints sort of bought into it, like we can put it, sometimes coaches that are really good, defensive coaches, offensive good, they get like full of themselves and they're like, I can make whatever. You just give me whatever. I'll make it work. I'll make it work at receiver. I'll make it work at tight end. I'll make it work at offensive line. It doesn't matter. And then you look up and you're like the end of the year and you're like, oh, we suck at that position and we have nothing but a bunch of UDFA scrubs. And that's what happened. That's what happens at defensive tackle. And the Saints get pushed around. And part of the reason they can't win these close games, and they've blown some of these games where they've been in the 98.9% or whatever the hell it was to beat Tampa, is because they couldn't close. Like, you can knock Dennis Allen and a coaching decision all you want. Like, they were up 16-3 against Tampa. Tom Brady had less than 5 minutes to go, and he had 1st and 10 at his own 9-yard line. And the Saints' defensive line, which is supposed to be good, couldn't close either one of the last 2 drives, right? So that's the thing. Like, their defensive line is just not any good. So, you guys may be missing people, but the Saints' defensive line, it really just hasn't gotten it. It hasn't gotten it done with sack. It had a stretch where it was pretty good, but most of the time, even when they get pressure, they can't really close.
And I think that's a huge part whether Jalen Hurts plays in this game or Gardner Minshew plays in this game, because
that's right.
Gardner Minshew proved that next year he deserves to be a starting quarterback on one of these teams that doesn't have a quarterback. And I think he played a valiant game against the Cowboys, and it just came down to, the Minshew magic ran out, right at the end of the game. But, to be able to contain one or the other of those quarterbacks who do have some mobile ability, and then when you look at a guy like Minshew now, who
That's right.
has Dallas Goedert right back in the middle of the field, how do you see Dallas Goedert being an X factor in this against the Saints linebackers?
I mean, the linebackers for the Saints have been pretty good. They actually, Caden Ellis has been a guy that they drafted in the 7th round. He's really come on and been a nice player. I think the Saints want to keep him, but I don't know what kind of offers he's going to get in free. Like a team will be like, hey, come and be a starter for us, and we'll give you a decent deal. But he's been a really good linebacker for them with Pete Werner being injured. Pete Werner, he came back. He didn't play last week in the cold. I think a lot of guys with like hamstring issues, the Saints are like, no, minus 15 degrees, bro. Just sit it out. You're good. He'll be back. The weather will be better against Philadelphia. But the thing with the Saints is Demario Davis, he made the Pro Bowl sort of like a lifetime achievement. He should have made like 2 other ones with the Saints. So like, I'm not gonna bag on him. Like he deserves to finally make it. But he's a guy that's kind of like, he's like lost a step a little bit, and you see it in coverage, and you really see it with him in run defense, where he used to have that step and he would close, and when he got his hands on you, you go down. Now he's like, it's a half a step, and it's an arm tackle. Guys run through him because he's diving, and those runs that used to be 4 yards are 10, 15 yards. So I think Philadelphia is going to they're going to do business against the Saints. I think, just because I just don't think the Saints are going to get a pass rush. The Saints secondary has been actually, considering the injuries they've had, it's been really good. And one of the things that they've found is Alontae Taylor. They drafted him in the 2nd round. Saints Twitter, we kind of flipped. We're like, what are you doing? Like, you drafted a corner last year in the 3rd round. You traded 2 third-round picks for a Debo. You draft another corner. Like, what are you doing? But like, he's that dude. Like, you can see it, and you know this. When you play a rookie corner, they're gonna be bumpy. But the thing you want is he just gets better every week. It's like, oh, a team was doing digs on him, a team were doing out routes on him, and they burned him a couple. Next week, oh, he's got it down. You're not doing that against him. Like, you see the progression with him, and he's really big and really physical, and he does what the Saints can do. So it'll be interesting. Like, I want to see him cover your elite guys. Like that's part of the fun, is like this, the playoffs for the Saints is kind of, I mean, I guess if they beat you guys and things fall right, you could have like a hope for the last week. But really, that's what it's been the last couple of weeks. It's like, hey, I want to see these young guys. I want to see Alontae Taylor on Smith, on AJ Brown. I want to see how he does. Like, can he hold up in the deep coverage like he's done the last couple of weeks? But I can't see you guys not scoring like 24 or 27. And like, the thing is, the Saints offensive line is so beat up. They lost Pete again. And Pete is a guy who, he's very frustrating, Saints fan, but he does move bodies and he does help them in the run game. Like, they were playing Throckmorton and Josh Andrews at guard. I mean, against you guys' defensive line, it's a concern. And you look at the Saints, if they don't have Olave, if they don't have Landry, then you got Rashid Shaheed, who's been a fantastic UDFA. Like, the Saints have found him. He looks like he can be a really good number 3, possibly a low-end number 2 receiver for the Saints in the future. But, like, against y'all, like, it's just, like, the Saints offense is just devoid of weapons. And don't even get me started on running back 2. I mean, it's an abyss. Like, basically, this is where I'm at with running back 2. I was just screaming with my podcast co-host, Andrew Juge, and he's like, listen, Ralph, you got to give somebody 5 carries a game. You can't just run Taysom and Kamara. Somebody's got to get 5 carries a game. It's got to be David Johnson or Bennett, somebody. And I was like, Andrew, who doesn't fumble on the team? He's like, well, the fullback hasn't fumbled. I'm like, good. Give him 5 carries. Like, I don't care. Like, just get me the 5 carries that Kamara can't do and Taysom can't do. I want somebody that doesn't fumble. Like, that's where we're at the number 2 running back for the Saints. Although I think you're going to see Benjamin. They claimed him. He's a problem child. He's been inactive 2 weeks. I think you're going to see him because the corpse of David Johnson, he is not alive.
He's very, very dead. When you bring up Kamara, and like, since he's coming to the league, been in that elite echelon tier. He was in that, historic running back class when he was drafted. This year just feels like something has been kind of off. Do you think that's just a product of the offensive line struggles, the quarterback shuffling, starting with Jameis, then going to Andy Dalton, Taysom Hill? Like, what has it been with Kamara this year?
It's been a bunch of things. I mean, he's been nicked up. He's had the ribs. And I think the ribs kind of is what has caused him his little bit of a like he never fumbled, and this year he's fumbled a ton comparatively in his career, right? I think the rib issue is affected him a little bit, but I just think mostly like he's a guy that when he's been in his absolute best with the Saints, they have a tandem guy for him. Mark Ingram or even Latavius Murray like is still kind of doing it in Denver. The Saints brought him back and let him go stupidly with the practice squad rules. Like he needs a tandem because Kamara, as tough as he ran against Cleveland in the cold, and I'll give him full credit for that. Like that was tough ass sledding between the tackles. Like that's not what Kamara is like good at. You know, like you need a two back system where like you got a guy that can pound between the tackles, and you give Kamara a bunch of outside runs and screens. And that's another thing. Like the Saints are just like, we're not running screen passes to Kamara. Like we're just not going to do it. It's like, well, why? Like I don't know. Like they go, oh, it's the game plan. This and it's like, well, could you mix in a screen? We're not saying be like New England and run 30 screens a game where Mac Jones is cursing out Matt Patricia on the sideline like that. Just mix in like 2-3 a game. Like cool. And like, you know, this offense, man. Michael not having Michael Thomas has killed them because you can point to games where like Kamara not having a tailback for Kamara hurts them, but like Cincinnati, they have a 3rd and 5 if they convert it, they win. Tampa, they have a 3rd down, they convert it and they win. Minnesota, they had a late 3rd and if they could have converted, they could have kept the ball when they were leading. Like Michael Thomas is built for that, and he's so frustrated because yeah, he had been gone for 2 years, but like the 2.5 games he played, he looked he was back. He's like, yeah, I'm all the way back, contested catches, all of it. He looked like the dude that massacred you guys in a playoff game. And like, he's so frustrated. That's so frustrating. It's just the Saints, injuries are never ending. And here's the thing I'll tell for you guys, which I feel is you guys kind of remind me of those really good Saints teams in 2009 and even 2018, 19, and 20, where like if those teams had a bye and 2018 had a bye, it didn't really help them. We felt like it was going to give them energy, but it didn't. The offensive line stayed banged up. But like the NFL, I know people talk about grit and luck and all the, you know, it's not luck, it's grit, and it's teams that, you know, you're the best and you did it when it counted. But like in 2009, I saw it on the ticker, Kyle. I saw it. Tracy Porter torn knee out for the season. Chris Mortensen reported. Okay. And the Saints are like, that's wrong. We're going to try to see. They sat him. He was out 6-8 weeks. He came back and he made the 2 biggest plays in the playoff game, like against Minnesota, against Brett Favre, and in the Super Bowl against Peyton Manning. Like you can say that's grit, that's toughness. I say that's just 100% goddamn luck. Like if his knee's torn, he's out. The Saints probably don't win, right? So like with you guys, to me, it's just one of those things. Like, if you're healthy, you're going to be fine. And if you're not, like you're doomed. And it's not coaching. It's not, you should have done this. You should have done it. It's just like, God damn it. Like it's injuries, man. And like football is so much that, and especially now with the stupid 17 game season and 1 bye.
Agreed. And, you know, you look at, you brought up the Saints offensive line and what the Eagles defensive line has been able to do this year, where they have the only team in the NFL where, you know, 5 guys have at least 10 sacks or more. You know, is it potential doomsday for whoever's playing quarterback back there?
Ooh, I mean, it is, because here's the thing with the Saints, and the Saints. This is a sort of a follow over from like the Sean Payton era. Whenever the Saints played a team that had one good pass rusher, Saints fans weren't really, if like you played the Raiders or the Bears with like Khalil Mack and they had one good guy, we'd be like, he's not going to, Sean Payton's going to, he's not, he would say in the press conference, we're not going to let it become that kind of game where like the Cowboys with DeMarcus Ware and one pass rush, right? They're like, they'll figure it out if you got one guy. The teams that give the Saints the most trouble are the teams that have like 4 B+ dudes. And that's you guys. Like, you don't have a dude that's like, he's like the best, but you got like depth. And that's where you become trouble, because you can't scheme against depth. You can't say, I'm going to double team this guy, chip this guy. Well, you got a 10 sack guy over there that's getting 1-on-1. You got a 10 sack guy in the interior that's getting 1-on-1. And that's the problem with the Saints. I will say this with Andy Dalton. He's been really good and better. Like Andy Dalton, if the Saints didn't have him, Kyle, you're going to laugh. But if the Saints had, say, botched backup quarterback, like if they had gotten like a Trubisky or like I'm trying to think of just like a really
Chase Daniel.
Like a Chase Daniel, like a really bad backup quarterback. Like if they just got like a Matt Ryan who's like cooked, right? If they had like gotten like that kind of quarterback, they'd be a 1-win team. Like because Andy Dalton, he's playing you can't ask for more of him. Now Andy Dalton, he's limited because his arm isn't great, but it's good enough, and he's a little bit throws better on the run than you think. But the thing about Andy Dalton is you can tell like he has got his body in as good a shape as it can be in. And the thing with him is he runs the play, he can read the defense, he can make the check, and he can throw the ball where it needs to be. And his receivers haven't really helped him, but he's really limited. But the thing is, Andy Dalton playing from behind is still a disaster. Like we saw it against Baltimore. We saw it against Pittsburgh when the Saints offensive line got destroyed. Like Andy Dalton, like it wasn't so much. It's just like, what do you want? He's Andy Dalton. Like he's 35. And like, like if the Saints, if they play Philadelphia and it's 17-13 and they have a lead and they can be comfortable punting the ball and they can get it third minute, he can be okay. But like if you get up 17-3, like it'll be Katie bar the door and it'll just be a disaster. So that's why I just think you guys have an advantage on the lines that is so significant. I mean, I guess there's always a possibility because I saw a 2-win Tampa team beat a 13-1 Saints team at home in 2009. So I guess all things are possible. I can't see a scenario where the Saints win that doesn't involve like massive. I mean, I'm talking like massive shenanigans. I'm talking like a block field goal, punt return for a touchdown, 3-4 turnovers from you guys. Like it's going to take massive shenanigans. Like basically if y'all play a B- game, y'all are going to win and cover.
And I mean, you look at the Eagles pass rush too, and you guys are going to see a familiar friend when he was with Carolina, Hassan Reddick, who
that's right,
arguably like behind Nick Bosa is the defensive player of the year this year. Like
he's been
unreal.
He's a guy that I just feel like there are guys that like they're guys that are like super elite, like the Bosas and the Khalil Mack when he was together, and Aaron Donald were like, they don't need other dudes. They just elevate other guys, and they're just going to get their 10 whatever sacks, and it's going to be fine. But with that dude, Reddick, like I feel like he's a guy where he's one of those guys where he's always been like, he's a pretty good player on that crummy defense, right? And then you put him on a good defense, and it's like, oh my God, he's amazing. It's like DeMario Davis for the Saints. He's like, he's in Cleveland. He's on the Jets, and the Saints side was like, why'd you pay Mario Davis? Why'd you pay him all that money? He's 30 years old. Why are you paying him? And then it's like, oh yeah, he was really freaking good, and now he's got all pros around him, and now he's freaking unbelievable. Like that's what I feel like with you guys. He wouldn't be what he is anywhere else, but it's that defense that you guys have that elevates him. And I mean, it's Saints, man. If depending on what they do at offensive line, it's gonna be a rough day, I think, for the Saints.
Yeah, and I mean, the Eagles solidified like the middle of the defensive line, with free agent pickups earlier this year too, and have, a 300+ pound refrigerator and Jordan Davis in the middle there. But when you have Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh like latching on, just trying to help a team win a Super Bowl help them get more rings, like that's a massive thing in terms of, and you bring up Kamara where he's had the fumbling issues with the rib injury and everything. Like I think those dudes in the middle only benefit the Eagles pass rush and, trying to stop the run from the outsides because they're going to be able to, clog the middle up with those three dudes in the middle.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Saints do scheme wise, because one thing they did that I thought was tremendously important against Cleveland was basically you could see it in their pass rush where I think in a normal game, they maybe would have cut it loose a little bit more against Cleveland, and it would have been more successful because Cleveland's offensive line was kind of banged up, and I think it's overrated a little bit. But you could see it where the Saints clearly made a decision in that game. They were like, I don't care if Deshaun Watson has all day. I don't care if he sits back there all day. Like if he can throw the ball, and tie this game up at 17 and 30-mile-an-hour winds, good for him. Do not let him break contain. Do not. And they had plays where you were just like, oh, I'm going to open up this Christmas gift. I'm going to open up this gift right now, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to be like, it seemed like he was back there forever. But he couldn't. He didn't make the throws in the Saints had window. I wonder if the Saints try to do something similar against the Eagles. The problem with the Eagles is the weather will be better, obviously, and the receivers for the Eagles are significantly better. But if Minshew plays, I think that's the way they're going to go. Because the Saints, they played Jacksonville at like the height of Minshew magic in 2019. And it was like, Minshew, he's great, blah, blah, blah. And they shut him down cold because I just believe he's a guy, he's really interesting. And I wouldn't mind if the Saints like took a shot on him. But I have serious reservations for him, like in the pocket. Like if you make him throw from the pocket, is he accurate enough? Is he good enough? Like he's really good when it breaks down, when he's moving. But like I wonder if it's Minshew, if the Saints are like, dude, throw from the pocket. You threw for 350 and 4, congratulations, whatever. But I wonder if that's going to be the plan. Because with Minshew, I feel like his running threat, it's good, but it's not Jalen Hurts. It's not
right.
Same. It's not the same.
Yeah, he doesn't squat 600 pounds.
That's right.
And I mean,
do y'all want Hurts to play? By the way, how are you feeling? Like, what do you want?
I'm so conflicted, for a number of reasons. Because like, I obviously want the 1 seed, the division locked up, and not having to worry about that Giants game. Like, it would be so ideal if like Jalen felt good enough to play. We're up by like 3 scores in the third quarter, and then we can just play Minshew the rest of the way. I think Minshew's going to play, mostly because of the news that Lane Johnson's going to be out. I think they're going to, give it the full recovery window that they said was expected for Jalen's injury of the 7 to 14 day time period, because Sunday is 13 days, so who knows if they decide to push it. But it would be nice to see Jalen back out there, especially like, playoffs right around the corner. Do you want a guy who has a, sprained shoulder? Do you want him sitting for a month? Like, do you want him throwing? Like, it's such a double-edged sword that, like, whatever happens, I just want the division and the 1 seed locked up so we don't have to worry about that, going into that Giants game. But I don't know if they have reservations now that Lane's injury is out and he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me in that if you guys win, everything in the NFC is sort of put to bed, and like it'll be even, Steve. And but if you guys lose to the Saints, it becomes chaos wagon, because then the Giants will be in the same situation we were last week. We're like, God damn it, Eagles! Why couldn't you just freaking win the game and rest everybody and like not care the last 2 weeks? Then the Giants will be like, oh my God, we need to win this game to get in the playoffs, and now the Eagles have to win, and y'all are like, we got to win to wrap up this bye. Now we got to get this bye. We got to hurt people, and you got Minnesota and Dallas and maybe San Francisco being like, hey, we're gonna play hard because we can get the one. So like then you have all these teams jockeying for that 1 seed, and it becomes complete and utter chaos where like y'all are like, oh my God, Dallas, if we don't beat the Giants, we're going to be the 5 seed, and oh my God, we're having to play the Saints again because they beat us and they beat Carolina, and they're this sad sack 8 and 9 team. We have to go to New Orleans and we're the 5 seed. What the hell just happened? So I just think for you guys, it'll be really interesting if it's not the layup that I think it is, and I think it's going to be closer to what you said, where you're going to look up in the third quarter and you're going to be like, oh, it's 24-7. Jalen, put on the hat, put on the jacket, have some cocoa. Like I'm just interested to see how the Eagles and how that stadium reacts if you look up and you're like, oh Lord, 17-13 going to the fourth. Like, or is and is this season, this magical season we have, and is it all going in flames? And listen, I've been there with the Saints from winning from 2017 to 2020, where you're having these dream season, and then in December it doesn't fall apart, but it gets really rocky, and you have these moments for it. So I'm just interested to see how that goes. How do you think it will go? Like, how do you think the stadium will react and the Eagles will react if it's a close-ish game going to the fourth quarter?
It's going to be raucous for a number of reasons. One, because it's the Saints, and I feel like Eagles Saints is one of those like unspoken out of division rivalries over the past 5-6 years now, and even dating back to like 2006 when Sheldon Brown absolutely sent Reggie Bush to the next dimension.
That's right.
Like, I feel like the Eagles and Saints has just been a fun out of division rivalry now for a long time.
We give it to y'all in the playoffs and y'all just give it to us in the regular season.
And it's just like you never forget Nick Foles left the field with a lead and all that kind of stuff. And then New Year's Day is always just crazy in Philly. You have the Mummers Parade, so people are going to be, trashed out of their minds going to the stadium and everything after the Mummers Parade. And, people are going to let them hear it if it's close, I think. It'll be loud. It's going to be crazy. I think one of the fun aspects of this game, too, is, like, does CD Deuce rush his way back to play against the Saints?
Yeah. It's like, to me, and I said it about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was like, listen, I know that you think the Tampa game, like Tom Brady ripped our guts out. He showed it to us and we died bleeding on the floor. And I know you think, oh, the Saints season's over. There's no more pain to be delivered. But I'm like, I'm telling you, the NFC South is terrible and there's more pain to come. And you can say, I'm done with the Saints in 2022, but they're not done with you. And I said to him, I said, the pain is going to come. Like, they got one more moment of like pain to give us. And like, I really think like CD Deuce having like 2 interceptions against the Saints and like wrapping the game up I'd be like, yep, that's the way 22 Saints season. That's the way it ends. CD Deuce giving 2 picks and going over and giving Dennis Allen the bird and MFing him and getting carried off the field. And like, that would be the way the Saints season would end. It wouldn't even hurt me at this point because they're not any good, but like, if there's going to be like maximum pain for the Saints, like I would put CD Deuce delivering it like high on the scale, because he is like, for me, I knew he was a troublemaker. Like on our podcast, my co-host Andrew Juge, he has real sources for the Saints. He doesn't break a lot of news. He does it in our Discord for our patrons only, but like, he knows people in the Saints building. And he told me after the Deshaun Watson trade that he was like, CD, he's gone off the deep. Like, he's a crazy person. Like, he's yelling at practice. He's MFing people. Like the Saints, like they're going to trade him. And I was like, no, man, he did the thing on Sunday night where he made fun of Tom Brady. He's a legend. You can't trade him, extend him, pay him whatever he wants. And he's like, I'm telling you. And it became that people were like, oh, the Eagles fleeced the Saints. And they kind of did. But here's the thing. I think they would have cut him. Like, wow. if the Eagles had been like, nah, we're not doing it. Like, I think the Saints would have cut him. Like, wow. That's where they were. That's where they were. It wasn't a case of the Eagles made us the best offer. It was, we're going to take the Eagles' bag of chips and a gift certificate to Wawa, or we're going to cut him. Like, he was just like, and I think that is, if you want to bang on Dennis Allen, that is one of the main things to bang on him, because Mickey Loomis has said, I work for the head coach. I do servant leadership. I try to give the head coach what he wants to the best of my ability. And CD Deuce was a thing. I really believe Dennis Allen went in there and was like, get him off my team. Get this dude off my team. Whereas if Dennis Allen had said, Mickey, CD Deuce is an important cog of this team, you got to pay him. Get it worked out. They'd have got it worked out and he'd be on this team. So like, that isn't a huge indictment. Forget about whether you want to pay CD or not. Like, that was a huge indictment on Dennis Allen. Like, that was his decision. And CD Deuce, like, he's a crazy person, but like, he's freaking, like, he's fun. Like, he's just,
I love him.
Like, when he goes, he's fun. Like, that Sunday night in Tampa where the Saints shut out Tom Brady and Brady's throwing tablets. And CD Deuce is just the same. He's just giving it to Brady, folding his arms, and Brady's like, what the fuck is this? What is happening? We're just like loving it because we're like, we own you, Tampa, in the regular season. We own you. We own you. And CD Deuce doesn't care about your rings and your Tom Brady and your greatness. He's giving it to you. This is amazing. And in the kind of a lost season with injuries, like, that was the moment. Like, people up until that point, we're like, I want to lose. I want a better pick. And I was like, I don't care if the Saints would have picked top 5. Like CD Deuce giving it to Tom Brady was worth it. And like he's just fun. I don't know. Are y'all gonna pay him?
I would pay him in a heartbeat. Like he is that guy that like was meant to play in Philadelphia. Like he's got that like swagger and arrogance that we just like adorn ourselves to when it comes to any defensive back. And like that moment when I think it was the Vikings game earlier this year when he picked off Kirk Coupons and just ran and was up in the stands like arms widespread and everything. Like I was like, he's meant to be an Eagle. Like that was his moment, and I was like, yep, he was born for this. And like everyone has just latched on to him, and like I think, and I love Jalen Mills when he was here. Like he was, super fun. Like same type of confidence and arrogance when he was playing well. I think CD Deuce is that guy times 100, and so many people have just latched onto him for just how fun and like confident, cocky he is. And he just brings that arrogance out of the Darius Slays, the James Bradberrys, Marcus Epps this year playing next to CD has been fantastic. And like you've got Reed Blankenship as a UDFA out here playing confident as ever, filling in for him. So like I think he's brought out like this next level of just like confidence in the secondary, which has been super fun. And I would pay him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is with CD, he's so fun. It's not just the Tom Brady thing. I mean, like the like he did that, but I don't know if you remember this, like in the playoff game against the Bears, like in the regular season, like he got somebody thrown out, like he got a penalty because he punched them, and the Bears like took time during practice. Was like, listen, I guess they had like a projector, like a PowerPoint. They're like, listen, don't let CD Deuce get to you, and don't punch him. And they spent time during the week, and CD Deuce still got your boy thrown out the game. Like he is a level of trash talker. He's unmatched. Like there's no, like I would say greatest in NFL history as far as trash talk, because like he literally, like a team prepared for his trash talk during the week and he still defeated them in a playoff game. So like I'm worried about that. Like can the Saints like handle him? Because if he starts cooking and the Saints are struggling, like they're gonna hear it. And the thing is, if Olave doesn't play and Jarvis Landry doesn't play, although he's been a disappointment since week 1, but those are like NFL quality receivers. The rest of the guys are like UDFA scrub level guys. So like there's a possibility that the Eagles are really dominating them. So I just like, like that's the thing. I know he's hurt. Like, if CD Deuce, like that's the thing though. Like, do the Eagles, like his desire to play, I get it. Like you want to stick it to the Saints. You want to stick it to Dennis Allen. He didn't pay you. You had to wait another year to get paid and you got hurt. I get it. He wants to stick it to the Saints. But like if in trying to stick it to the Saints, he agitates an injury that is very similar to the one Marshawn Lattimore got for the Saints. I know Marshawn Lattimore had more severe kidney issue, but it's similar, and Marshawn Lattimore still hasn't played. Do you risk it to spite the Saints?
Right.
Like I mean, I love to spite. I want to spite my enemies, so I feel him in that way.
Especially
I
with his arrogance that
That's
he
right.
has.
I get it, CD. You want to spite the Saints, and you want to fly. You want to do Eagles fly and just rub it in Andy Dalton and Dennis Allen's face. I get it, but like, at what risk to like? Because y'all need him. If you're gonna win, if you're gonna win a title, you're gonna need him.
100%, especially with Avonte Maddox out. Like he's a huge cog in the wheel, and like I just love him. Like he's dyed his hair tips green, bringing back shades of Jalen Mills with the Green Goblin, and like it's fun too. Like I don't know if he did this in New Orleans whenever he would be injured. Like he's live tweeting the games and like tweeting at guys, which I think is just fun and like a good way for a guy who is trying to get paid to just endear himself to his teammates and have them vouch, to Howie Roseman and be like, hey, pay this guy.
Well, yeah, it's true. Like he's gonna get paid because like interceptions and sacks get you paid. Like period. Like you can like I know teams are being more analytical based and whatever, but it's still that guy got sacks, that guy got picks, and we're gonna pay him. But I have a question for you that I always ask people when they come on our podcast, and you can, and I'll answer the same if you want. But I always like to ask people because the Eagles like 1,000 times better than me. But what's a thing that you look for early in the game for the Eagles that a non-Eagles fan wouldn't necessarily? Because it's obvious, like, yes, if they're ripping off 15-yard outs to AJ Brown, yes, that's good. Or they're doing this, that's a good sign. But what's a thing where you look to the Eagles that's a subtle thing that you're like, oh, that's really good? Or on the flip side, you're like, oh my God, this is bad. And like if I'm a Saints fan, I'm not watching. I'm like, I don't even notice it. But you're like little subtle things that make you excited or get you really concerned about the Eagles on game day.
This year on offense in particular, it's like, okay, is Miles Sanders going early? Because when Miles Sanders has been going early and they've been giving him the ball, it's opened up the pass game so much more efficiently than it did last year because Miles Sanders found out how to run forward somehow in a contract year. But when I see, the early mixing of Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell on third down, it's like, why do we have these 5'6" running backs in on key downs? Like, Miles Sanders is right there. That drives me nuts. So, if Miles is out there and, he's picking up 4, 5, 6 yards a carry early, that's a good sign for just what's to come from the offense and Nick Sirianni actually trusting Miles Sanders. And then on the defensive side, it's like, okay, does Jonathan Gannon give up the annoying, tedious, early drive that ends in a touchdown and we're all yelling and screaming, and then hopefully he finds a way to adjust, which he normally does, without having to send pressure or blitzing at all this year, and somehow the Eagles lead the league in interceptions and sacks. It's one of those things, just kind of viewing how the defense kind of opens up, and for whatever reason they always start slow and they adjust as the game goes on. And then Miles Sanders going early has been like the key sign of like, okay, we're going to be balanced. And that's what works with this team, because then that opens up, if Jalen plays, like you get the RPO go and it lets Jalen, use his legs a little bit more than what we're accustomed to. And then same thing we saw with Gardner Minshew, like when you were running the ball a little bit against Dallas, like it allowed him to kind of get space. It allowed guys to get open in the passing game. He's throwing 51-yard bombs to A.J. Brown, which I didn't see coming at all from Gardner Minshew. And, it gives him that minivan strength that I guess he's had all summer leading into this year, which has been great.
Yeah, with the Saints, it's one of those things where, like I said, their defensive line has been sort of mediocre and underachieving all year. But like they played San Francisco, and you would look at that game and you'd be like, "Oh, the San Francisco won 13-0. That was a cakewalk." But the Saints actually played really well in that game. Their just offense kept stepping on their own dick inside the 10-yard line. Like they moved. They averaged like a yard and a half more per play than San Francisco. But in that game, when we went into that game, sort of similar to Philadelphia, we're like, San Francisco, God, their defense and their offense is so good. Like they're gonna manhandle the Saints. And in that game, the Saints defensive tackles that struggle all year, like Shai Tuttle, Onyemata, Roach, they were killing it against San Francisco. And McCaffrey was like trying to run. San Francisco was running all their fancy running motions, and the Saints were just like not having it. And that push up the middle, they couldn't really get sacks on Jimmy Garoppolo, but they were shoving the San Francisco line back, and San Francisco couldn't run the ball. And we saw it early, and it stayed basically the whole game. The Saints just kind of self-destructed and gave San Francisco a bunch of points. That's one thing where you when you look at it early on defense, you're like, oh yeah, maybe we have a chance. That to me is, I think, number one against the Eagles. The other thing on offense is if Andy Dalton is going where he's throwing to Juwan Johnson, he's throwing to Kamara out of the backfield a little bit, and Olave is doing that. You're scared to cover me because you're scared of me beating you deep, and I'm just going to take my 10-yard pass, and Andy Dalton is on. Because he's had some games where he's been really good and accurate, more accurate than you think. If he's on early, that's a good sign. On the flip side, for the Saints, the bad things are pretty obvious. But like I said, in the interior, which goes to your Sanders part, if he's moving early in the interior, you're dominating the Saints' defensive tackles, and you're going to have rushing yards all day. And that's just something that you'll have it. And it, like you said, it'll build stuff off of it. The other thing is the Saints. If I told you who leads the Saints is in interceptions, who would you guess?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's going to be somebody weird. I can already tell that.
It's weird.
I don't know why he was the first person to come to my mind, but Cam Jordan's the first one that came to my mind.
No, it's a tie between like three guys, but Daniel Sorensen is one of the guys.
Huh.
He had a pick against Cleveland in the snow that set up the game-winning touchdown, and he's now tied for the lead. The Saints have 3 interceptions the entire year. 2 by Tyrann Mathieu, 1 by Demario Davis, and 1 by Daniel Sorensen. They have 4 picks.
I forgot Tyrann Mathieu signed with the Saints.
He's been actually he was looking very bad early in the year. He looked disinterested. He had some personal issues that they didn't tell us what they were, but he missed like 2 weeks of camp to start. He had some personal issues that I think he was working through. He's actually become very solid the last 6-7 weeks. He's been playing really good. I think their Saints are going to have him back. He hasn't been the playmaker that they hope, but I think that's just because the defensive line hasn't been good. But I mean, they have 4 interceptions all year. Like the Saints, like it's not only incredible that they haven't really dropped that many. They've had a bunch taken away by penalty, but it isn't like they're creating many chances. It's just one of those years where like fumble luck, interception luck, like any kind of luck is just not it's just not with them. And it's just that's the thing. Like if the Saints like if you are at halftime and you're like, oh my God, the Saints have 2 interceptions, whatever liquor you have, drink it all, because you're in if the Saints are intercepting multiple passes against the Eagles, you're in a world of hurt that I can't even I don't even know how to describe it to you. Just be very, very, very afraid. Multiple interceptions. I would look to buy hard drugs going into the 4th quarter. That's all I'm going to tell you. That's all I'm going to tell you, Kyle.
Has when he's been healthy, has the performance of CD Deuce this year surprised Saints fans?
I mean, not really. I mean, he was great. He was banged up last year, but like he's been amazing. Like it has been a thing where like the Saints didn't let him play safe. The Saints are like, you're a slot corner. We want you to play slot corner. You're really good at it. And he was. So like it hasn't surprised us at all. Like he was fantastic. Like he's been fantastic from the Saints from like day one. Like he was really good. Like he had a couple moments his rookie year where like Kittle ran him over, I think. And like that was it. But like he was a guy where like early on you're like, oh, they drafted this dude from Florida. And he's just kicking everyone's ass in practice, and he's treating it like the Super Bowl every single day. And he's a lunatic. And it was like he's that guy. Like he just was like he's just one of those guys. Like he didn't have like the perfect measurements, which was probably why he's in the 4th round. But like everything else he has, you want it. Like fearlessness, willingness to tackle. He's better than you think. And the thing I like about him is he's so arrogant. Like, and I don't know how you describe this like trait with a defensive back. I don't know how you would measure it in the draft, but I need a defensive back that's like their confidence like doesn't dip. Like, okay, Kyle, you just got burned for an 80-yard touchdown. Doesn't matter. You're just talking smack. The next play you can get him. Like, because like defensive back, it's one of those things where like fans that we think we know stuff, but we really don't. Like that's the one thing we see, and we're like, that defensive back, he's terrible. He got roasted back-to-back plays. We're gonna boo him. Like that's the thing. Like self-confidence for a defensive back is like one of those critical things that like you can't measure it. But like CD Deuce, like it doesn't matter. Like the Saints could absolutely cook him on Sunday, cook him, but like. If he makes the game-winning pick, he'll pretend like the other 65 plays didn't happen, And that's like it's like a special quality that like defensive backs need.
I think that's what the kids call. He's got that dog in him.
He's got that dog in him. But like I feel like like when you say he's got that dog in him, like that means like you're tough and like you keep fighting. But like it's like a memory of a gnat or something,
Yeah.
But like that's the thing. Like CD Deuce, like. I could see like him getting interviewed after the game and be like, Chris Olave beat you for 13 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He'd be like, fuck all that noise. I got the pick that won the game. Can we talk about that? Like, I could see him doing that to like Aaron Andrews or whoever on the sideline, right? And like, that's why you love him. You'd be like, that's my guy.
I loved when he walked into a press conference this year. He just had these big pink sunglasses on. Somebody asked him about it. He's like, you look good, you feel good, you play good. That's what my mama told me.
That's right. But like more so than like any position, you need that like
Yep.
insane level confidence at corner. Because listen, y'all are gonna play. I know y'all housed Kirk Coupons, as you say, but like Justin Jefferson, like that dude is no joke, and like he might be cooking you in the fourth quarter, right? And I need a dude like CD who can like pretend that like those first 3.5 quarters didn't happen. And like now it's 24-20. We got to make this play. I'm CD Deuce. I'm going to make this play. And I just like, you can tell, like, I'm sad. Like the Saints, I don't care that he was a lunatic. I don't care that he was a problem child. They should have paid him. I miss him. He's iconic.
It is like Malcolm 2.0.
It is. It is, though. The thing about Malcolm, though, and this was wrong on Saints fans, they signed Jarris Byrd. We were like, let Malcolm leave. Like, he's terrible these last 2 years. Like, we got Jarris Byrd from Buffalo, baby. We upgraded. No, the Saints just didn't know how to use Malcolm Jenkins, and they made a huge error, you know? But CD, when they traded him, the thing was they traded him for nothing, and it's training camp, so it's not like in free agency or wherever where it's like early in the year, like, okay, we'll go and get another slot corner. We'll go and need another. No, they did it like, what was it, like a week before the season started?
Yeah.
And the thing is too that really, like, that's a defining point is like the Saints in their offseason had done everything to win, right? They had created cap space to try to get Deshaun Watson. That didn't work out. Thank God. I saw him on Saturday. Good luck with that, Cleveland. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck with that. But like they had traded with you guys for the extra pick. They got Olave. They got Penny. He got hurt, but that didn't work out. But like they created the cap space. They had signed Honey Badgers. They had signed Landry. They not like going all in necessarily like the Rams, but like they had gone as much as you can go all in with the hand they had.
Mm-hmm.
And then you trade CD Deuce a week before. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, you should have got that business done on draft day. And instead of getting a 5th and a 6th and a 7th, whatever the hell you got, you should have got like a compensatory 3rd or 4th. Like, and I know it's not that much difference, but it is. Because if you'd have done it on draft day, you could have prepared for it. You could have done a better job. The Saints, like Mickey Loomis, he's been good, but he botched that. He botched that all up. Like, and they knew from the moment he was in the Deshaun Watson trade talks, they knew that he was pissed. They knew that he didn't like that. They knew that he had flipped out over it. And like they just botched it. They botched it.
Yeah. Ralph, we always end the show with a fun question involving the team, involving our guests. Obviously, with you guys being the Saints, if you could name one member of either this current Saints team or in Saints history, the patron saint of blank, who would it be, and the patron saint of what?
The patron saint, I think probably it would be Archie Manning, and it would probably be like the patron saint of lost causes. Because I know that like Archie Manning, like he's like a long time ago, and it's like 50 years ago for people even my age. I'm in my 40s. Like it's like it might as well be like black and white, like silent movies, like Archie Manning. But like the Saints in the 70s, like Archie Manning, he should be in Canton, and the Saints like literally just like wasted his entire career with incompetence. And like the thing is, if you talk to Saints fans of a certain age, they don't want to hear that Archie was bad, because that, like in the 70s, that's all he had. Like the Saints were terrible. They had an astronaut running the team. A literal astronaut was the GM of the team. Like that's how bad incompetent the Saints were in the 70s. And like Archie Manning was it. It was all we had. And he's the patron saint of lost causes. Because I believe in like a parallel universe. Like, not that the Saints were good in the 70s because nothing was saving the Saints, but I believe in a parallel universe. Archie in like 1973 was like, get me the fuck out of here. And he like goes to the Raiders or goes to a team in the 70s, and like he's in Canton and he's a legend. And it's just another thing in the Saints. Like, yeah, you had Archie Manning and he won. The guy that won 3 Super Bowls with the Raiders, yeah, you couldn't do shit with him. Like the patron saint of lost causes would be Archie Manning for me.
Here's where he actually goes. It's in an alternate universe. You guys still get Drew Brees, but Archie Manning ends up going to some iteration of the Chargers, and saving them from losing out on Drew Brees' prime years.
That's right. That's right.
Ralph,
go ahead.
Save Drew. Let everybody know where they can check out the podcast, follow you on the socials, and get struck by lightning like Drew Brees.
That's right. Drew Brees is so bored he's faking his own death, right? He's so bored. His wife was like, "Stop faking your own death and go coach Purdue in that bowl game. Do it." But seriously, just find me on Twitter, Saints Happy Hour. Like, I know you're Eagles fans and you're not going to, like, you probably won't pay for our podcast, but you can go to saintshappyhour.com and check out our free content. And we have a ton of fun Saints content. And I'm going to tell you, like, I know it doesn't matter for you guys and us because we're not firing Dennis Allen and y'all have a really good coach. But, like, the Sean Payton sweepstakes is still out there.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, Mike McCarthy, he doesn't get to the NFC Championship. He's going to get fired into the sun. And on the other side of that, Jerry Jones is going to have Sean Payton, I think. So, like, just give us a follow. And we have free content and breaking news and stuff to, like, explain and, like, keep you up to date on the Sean Payton sweepstakes. You're going to want to be plugged into that. So that's my pitch to Eagles fans to follow us Saints Happy Hour.
I think there's like half the teams in the league vying for Sean Payton at this point.
Oh my God. Like we are so getting a first round pick for Sean Payton.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. At least.
That's right.
But they do fantastic work with the Saints Happy Hour, guys. So make sure you're following them. Follow Ralph at Saints Forecast. And Sunday's going to be a blast, man. Happy New Year to you and yours. And let's have a fun new chapter of Eagles Saints.
Let's hope so. I hope it's not as bad as I think it's going to be.
Big shout out to Ralph for hopping on the show once again this week. He's been an OG on Eagles Enemy since day one. And we've really formed a very fun friendship together over the years. So big shout out to the homie Ralph Malbrough. Make sure you guys follow him at Saints Forecast and check out the Saints Happy Hour podcast. Eagles Saints kicking off the new year in style. The Eagles win. They're the number 1 seed in the postseason. They are NFC East champs. You get the bye week. You give Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson an extra week of rest. It's going to be a doozy. Eagles Saints always is. We'll see what the next chapter holds here between Philadelphia and New Orleans. I'm very excited for it. I think the Eagles are going to get the job done with Gardner Minshew. I think it's going to happen. I have faith in Gardner, and Gardner has faith in us. So, our little baby New Year, Gardner Minshew. Let's get the job done, my man. Make sure you guys are following us at Underground PHI on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/UndergroundSportsPHI. You can follow me on Twitter at KBIZZL311 and on Instagram at KBIZZLE11. Subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's the main Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast feed. Subscribe, and leave those 5-star reviews. It really does mean a lot. Goes a long way for helping the show continue to grow. And then, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of Eagles Enemies and every podcast coming out of Underground Studios. That's also where you get live streams, where you get original content. You get everything on our YouTube channel. So youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia is the place to be. Smash that like button, ring the bell icon, comment down below your predictions for Eagles Saints. And it's been another doozy of an episode of Eagles Enemies presented by Underground Sports Philadelphia. I'm your host, KB. Again, shout out to Ralph Malbrough for coming on the show this week. And you know what they always say. Go Birds, and Happy New Year, everybody.